Two guys in the same parking lot. First guy, leased G-Wagon. $6 iced coffee, phone in his hand. Second guy, used Toyota, groceries in the cart, phone in his pocket. One of them has $1 million. The other has a payment. Here are 12 ways to tell them apart and why it matters more than you think. For the next 10 minutes, I'll walk you through 12 quiet signals of real wealth. Not the loud ones the internet sold you, the specific ones you can read across a parking lot, a dinner table, or a first meeting. This matters because the guys who can read these signals stop imitating the wrong ones. And that alone changes what happens with the next decade of your money. One thing before we start, because it decides how you hear everything else. Loud money is almost always borrowed money. Not always, but almost. The visible flex, the new car, the new watch, the new outfit, the new address, is more often a payment than an asset. And the 20-something who doesn't know that is quietly imitating the wrong signal and paying real money to do it. Meanwhile, the guys with the actual bank account are doing something different, something quiet, something the internet does not film because it is not filmable. They are optimizing for optionality, not for perception. 12 specific behaviors give them away. Once you can read them, you cannot unread them, and you'll stop imitating the wrong side. Bucket 1. What they own. Signal 1. The vehicle. A regular car, a few years old in a color you would not remember, not a badge on wheels. The real money default is a boring, reliable vehicle that does not become part of anybody's story. If the car is loud, the account is often quiet, and vice versa. The most important test, does the car generate questions from strangers? If yes, that guy is paying rent to a version of himself he's still trying to convince. Signal 2, the watch. Either nothing at all or something specific and understated that costs less than you'd guess by looking. Real money does not wear time on its wrist as a scoreboard. If you have to ask what brand it is, that's usually the brand. And a guy without a watch at all, and just a phone or nothing, is often the wealthiest guy in the room. He does not need the wrist to say anything. Signal 3. The clothes, fit, fabric and repetition. Same 3 or 4 combinations on rotation. No logos loud enough to be identified from across the street. Colours that don't shout. Materials that get better after 10 years, not worse. If you never once notice what somebody is wearing, that is often the wealthiest person in the room. Their whole wardrobe is designed to make you not remember it. Bucket 2, how they talk about money. Signal 4, rarely. They mention money almost never. Not out of virtue, out of habit. Money as conversation topic is a marker of not having it yet. Once you have it, it stops being a story you tell about yourself. And any guy who volunteers what he paid for something, unprompted, in the first 30 minutes of meeting you, count that as one clear signal in the wrong direction. Signal 5. Specifically. When they do talk about money, it's about a specific mechanism. How a business is structured. Why a decision was made. What a trade cost. Not about totals, not about winning, not about how much. Specifics beat numbers every time. The wealthy guy talks about the how. The broke guy pretending talks about the amount. Same subject on the surface, entirely different conversations underneath. Signal 6, without flexing. When they mention a price, it's almost always downward, never a brag about paying more, always a curiosity about paying less. Real money is genuinely interested in getting good value on small things. The guys who overpay to look like they can afford to overpay are almost universally the ones who can't, and the guy quietly proud of a deal on a used couch. He is more likely to have a real bank account than the guy dropping the brand of his new one. That's 6. Halfway. If you've been running through the guys in your life and finding the ones you thought were rich are showing zero of these, that is not an accident. That's the whole point of the video. Keep counting. Bucket 3, their calendar. Signal 7, fewer meetings, not more. The high earner default is a schedule with real gaps in it. 2-hour blocks, long lunches, room to think. Not shredded into 15-minute pieces. The guy whose calendar is a wall of back-to-backs is usually the guy who has not yet learned to say no. Wealth creates the ability to protect your time. And the visible marker of that ability is empty space on the calendar that stays empty. Signal 8, boring maintenance. Regular exercise at the same time. Regular checkup with the doctor. Regular hour with the accountant. Regular time with the family. Boring, unbroken, on the calendar. If the health, the finances and the family are not on the calendar, they will not survive being wealthy. The guys who make it to 50 with their money, their bodies and their marriages intact are almost universally the same ones. The ones whose calendars had these 4 things on them at 25. Signal 9. No last-minute chaos. Rare. Not perfect. They still have emergencies. But when you watch their week, most things were planned. Very little of their day is other people's urgency. That absence of chaos is its own signal. It is one of the hardest things to fake. Chaos in your calendar is the visible symptom of not being able to say no. Wealth is, in large part, the compounding of a long history of saying no. Bucket 4. Their friends, their address and their taxes. Signal 10. Their friends look like them, which is to say, you can't tell. Their friends are also quiet, understated, in roughly the same range of income, but you would not guess it. Real money quietly filters its circle for people who don't need the money to be visible. And the reason is protective. A circle of people who need the flex will pull you back into it faster than any amount of discipline can hold. Signal 11. Their address, not the loudest neighbourhood. Often a good neighbourhood, a step down from what they could afford. The reason is not humility, it's stability. The house you can more than afford is a house that never causes stress, no matter what happens to your income. Wealthy people optimize for absence of stress because they've felt what stress costs, and they refuse to hand a chunk of their peace back to a mortgage. Signal 12, their taxes. They know theirs in detail, they know the rules where they live. Not because they love it, because they refuse to leave money on the table by default. If a guy tells you casually that he doesn't really know his tax situation, he is not the guy you want to take money advice from. Knowing the boring rules is the entry ticket to keeping what you make. Everybody who has kept it knows them. That's 12. And now, the part that matters. So here's the callback. 2 guys in the same parking lot, G-Wagon on payments, used Toyota with real groceries, 12 signals apart. The whole pattern under all 12 is one word. Optionality. Real money optimizes for options. Loud money optimizes for perception. Those are 2 entirely different games, and the internet spent the last decade convincing you they were the same one. Which brings us to the 1-week challenge. Because reading the signals doesn't mean anything if you don't start giving them off yourself. For the next 7 days, start living one specific step below your visible line. Whatever you would have bought to look like you could afford it, don't. Whatever you would have posted to look like you were doing well, don't. See what changes. See who notices. See how it feels. If you're 22 and broke, the good news is enormous. You get to install these signals for free before you have any money at all, which means when the money shows up in your 30s, you already know how to hold it quietly. Most people don't. That gap alone is worth a decade of compounding. If this hit, subscribe. I make one of these a week. practical stuff about how money actually works. No hype, no shortcuts.